If you think the moon landing was faked, you just want attention. It took nearly 500,000 people to build the Saturn V rocket and the lunar module. Do you think they all lied until their graves? You don't think one person would have snitched by now? Oh, but like his boots don't match the footprint on the moon. Yeah, it's literally called an overshoe. It was part of the spacesuit. It's really not that hard to understand. But like, why is the flag waving? There's no atmosphere. It doesn't make any sense. Do you think NASA doesn't understand gravity? They installed a metal rod to hold up the flag, but it got jammed and didn't extend all the way. But why aren't there any stars? Like, they're in space, you'd be able to see the stars. Yeah, it's called being on the daylight side of the moon. You know, the side that faces the sun? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to see anything. If they took the focus off the surface and tried to point it at the stars, this is what it would look like. Do you think anybody wants to see that? But just in case common sense isn't good enough for you, the lunar module is literally still there and people take pictures of it all the time.
This is
really
wild.
To be famous, I guess that's what she wanted to be. And she met somebody who could promise her that. And she met somebody. Have you ever heard this?
No.
She met somebody.
That's crazy.
And he was like, I know how to make you famous. And she's like, how? And he's like, we can turn you into anything.
Scientology.
We can turn you, honestly.
It may have been something like that.
We can turn you into a singer, an actor, whatever you want.
MTV's made.
And
Yeah, really.
That would have been made. And one day he visited her apartment and he was like in a suit and tie. And I came in and I saw him in the suit. And then she's like, please leave. And she closed the door on me, so I left. And she came up to my apartment fucking sobbing. And she was like, this guy, please, you cannot repeat this. And for 3 years, I held the story to myself because I thought this guy was going to kill me. They were like, if you ever repeat this, they'll kill me and they'll kill you and they'll kill anybody that you love. And she was sobbing to me and she's like, there's this guy, he came to me. And he's telling me that, sorry, my headphones were out. Can you hear that?
You just gotta get closer to it.
Oh, okay. She was like, this guy came to me and he's like, I can turn you into anything you want to be, but you have to sacrifice somebody. And I just spoke to my mother and my mom really supports me and she's like willing to be sacrificed so I can become like a singer or whatever, famous, whatever. And this was completely serious and it was really fucking terrifying.
You ever heard of the hollow earth theory?
Not really, but like...
You never heard of it?
Nah.
Okay.
I've heard
so
of it.
I think in like the 1960s, there was a pilot that flew over Antarctica.
Okay.
And he found a hole in Antarctica.
In the earth? Oh, it just...
That led like into the earth.
Damn.
So his claim, I don't know if this is true,
Yeah.
but his claim was that he went inside
Yeah.
and he saw like a civilization inside of Antarctica.
Oh, shit.
Like deep inside the ground, underground.
Yeah.
And he's saying it's in like advanced civilization. Like they have shit that we couldn't even create.
Like robots?
I don't know. Because it just says advanced civilization,
yeah,
right?
like, what is that?
Here's the crazy part though. So he said all of this shit, right? He came out with the news and everything and said it. Mm-hmm. Then the silenced him. Like
Really?
they told him like he couldn't talk about this shit anymore.
Oh, shit. Damn.
Yeah.
So that's how you know it's valid, bro.
But like who knows, right? Like
If young Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you. Beautiful morning, yeah, the sun in my morning, babe. Nothing in the
This man claimed to be from a country that doesn't exist, and some people say his story could be proof of a parallel universe. In July of 1954, a businessman entered a Tokyo airport and was asked for his passport, which he then handed over. His passport said he was from a country named Torad, and it looked 100% legit and even had stamps from other countries. But the country of Torad doesn't exist. Trying to understand the situation, the customs officers brought out a map and had him point to where the country of Torad was, and he pointed right here. He pointed to the country we know of as Andorra, and this perplexed the man, and he said the map was wrong. And what's even crazier is that the man said he had flown from Torad to Tokyo many times in the past. Since security couldn't verify where this man was from, they detained him and put him in a hotel and put guards at the door. The guards never left the door, but the next morning the mysterious man, along with his belongings and passport, had disappeared.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in? I'll go first.
Nah, I got you, Brody, and I ain't even gonna hold you. Women came first, and a black woman at that. Black women are the only organism on this rock with a genetic catalyst called the Eve gene capable of making beings lighter or darker than themselves, no matter what their creative counterpart looks like. On a chromosome level, XX comes before XY, even on the Punnett square if we was mixing plants. Women have an XX chromosome, men have an XY. If we're going to keep it biblical, the story of Adam and Eve does not start with Adam, it starts with Lilith, who is the first young black goddess. If we're going to keep it scientific, if I was an architect, I would not build the key first. I would build that house from the foundation up first, make sure it was complete and secure before I make the key to open that door. Women are the house, men are the key. Women are the only beings in this dimension that can bring spiritual vessels or spiritual beings in the physical vessels in this dimension. So why are we playing this game? All the misogynistic and patriarchal manipulation to our history and culture. Why?
Yes, we can, and it has to do with cave systems, Native American folklore, and a giant cover-up by the US government under the direction of Teddy Roosevelt and the National Park Service. Allow me to explain. The United States is crisscrossed by a series of extremely complex and mostly unexplored cave systems that go under the Appalachian, Rocky, and other smaller mountain ranges. Native American monsters like the Wendigo like to inhabit these caves. Short answer for why that is that they're so consumed by their desire for human flesh that they have no real sentience any longer. So they don't really think to build shelters, they just live in caves. And of course, Teddy Roosevelt, being the avid outdoorsman he was and a believer in Bigfoot, knew about these creatures. He knew that they were hunting people. He started the National Park Service so that he could have actual special forces kind of corral these things into areas where they could be managed and possibly killed, or at the very least, keep people away from them. Now, why are people allowed in the national park? Well, because if you put off a lot of federal land and said you can't go here, people would ask questions. So those people getting lost are just collateral damage at this point.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1000% believe in?
Okay, hear me out. It sounds weird. Mattress Firm is laundering money or doing something super, super sketchy. Mattress Firm likes to cluster their stores together. Just look. This is in my hometown. These are not even a minute apart from each other. There's 3 of them on the same road. Same city, same thing. And here, example again. Outside of my city, this is in Texas, there are 10 on the same road. I don't know how spread out these are, but 10. I've never been in a Mattress Firm my entire life. There can't be that much of a need for mattresses. The weird thing too, and you'll just have to take my word on this, when you drive past a Mattress Firm, there's never cars in the parking lot. And if there is, there's like maybe one. Maybe one. The Mattress Firm website says there's 2,500 stores across America and about 8,500 employees. That means there should be at least 3 people working a store. On top of that, they've disclosed accounting irregularities. Oh my god, I could talk about this all day.
Did you know when someone appears in your dreams, that means they miss you? And on those nights that you can't sleep, that means you're awake in someone else's dream. During your 4th and 5th hour of sleep, you're prone to the most cognitive dreams. You experience premonition, which is basically a strong feeling that something's gonna happen, and the person you have or had a connection with subconsciously astral travels into your dreams because they're thinking of you and they miss you. And don't worry if you can't sleep at night, because Japanese legend says, when you're having one of these nights, it's because you are awake and active in someone else's dream.
Have you ever heard of the Ed, Edd and Eddy theory? The theory suggests that all the kids in the neighborhood are dead and all their adventures are taking place in purgatory. Evidence that supports this theory is because the kids have blue or green tongues, which is evident in corpses. In earlier seasons, the children experience an endless summer, which suggests that time no longer exists. The reason they never leave the cul-de-sac is because they can't. They are stuck souls, forced to live out eternity in the neighborhood they died in. According to the theory, the children all come from different eras between the 1900s and 2000s. Rolf is the eldest of the bunch and died in 1903 after being stampeded by his family's farm animals. Johnny died in 1922 from tuberculosis. His wooden friend Plank was created as a result of his loneliness, and he took Plank into the afterlife since it was the last thing he saw before he died. Eddie moved from New York to the neighborhood during the Great Depression and would scam the neighborhood kids to earn money. Eventually, the children caught on to his tricks and chased him down. To escape, Eddie jumped into a lake and drowned. Even in purgatory, Eddie is is still chasing the idea of wealth and money and continues his scams even after death. Ed and Sarah moved into the neighborhood next after their father died in World War II. When their heartbroken mother becomes distant and neglectful, they each find their own ways of coping. Sarah takes on the parental role, while Ed gets lost in his own imagination through comic books. They both passed away in a car accident in 1953. Naz came from a hippie family in the 1960s. Unfortunately, her life was short-lived after her and her entire family were murdered in 1979 by a serial killer who escaped from a nearby asylum. Double D originates from the 70s and came from a strict household where he was raised to strive for perfection in every aspect of his life. Being so worked up and determined to become the best son he could be, he spent extra time on schoolwork and did not notice the gas leak coming from his chemistry set, which eventually exploded and resulted in his death. Kevin came from the 80s. His bullying persona was a result of the abuse he faced from his father, who beat him to death in the winter of 1999. Even though his dad was sentenced to life imprisonment for his son's murder, Kevin imagines his dad as the complete opposite. While in purgatory, he is loved by the very man who ended his life. Jimmy is the youngest of the group, originating from the 90s. Because he suffered from leukemia, he wasn't allowed to hang out with the other children in fear that he would wind up hurt. Eventually, he died from his illness. The Cankers are said to be demons sent to purgatory to torture the souls of the children. Their attraction to the Eds is because they have the weakest will and they each represent a deadly sin. Even though there is some evidence supporting this theory, there's more going against it. For instance, the reason for the children's green tongues is due to the candy they eat, with particular reference to jawbreakers and their vast array of colors. The time period is made to be ambiguous, but by closely examining certain background elements, such as magazines and product boxes, viewers can easily identify the era as taking place sometime during the 90s.